In your life, you've watched thousands of movies, TV shows, TikToks, Snapchats, Vines, Instagram videos, you name it. And my objective in the next 3 to 5 minutes is to make sure you never watch any of those things the same way again. When I was in college, I majored in something called film studies, which is less about the technical process of making movies and more a critical analysis of filmmaking as an art form. So that sounds kind of pretentious, but what I came away with was an understanding of how to analyze media. What I'm gonna do is attempt to condense everything I learned in 4 years into about 5 minutes, and then we'll apply that to analyzing 3 of my favorite and maybe your favorite YouTubers. Okay, let's get started. Understanding how to watch a film comes down to 2 basic things. Number 1 is understanding the choices that a filmmaker is making at any given time. This is also known as film form. Number 2 is understanding how those choices impact the person watching the movie. That's known as the function or effect of these tools. There are an infinite number of choices a filmmaker can make at any given time. Think about Jaws when someone's about to get attacked. What do you hear? Right? That's a choice that Steven Spielberg's made to create anticipation and suspense for the viewer. I'm kind of freaked out now. A film's form is the way all these parts of the movie work together to create an overall effect.
That was nice.
While there are an infinite number of choices that a filmmaker can make at any given time, they all fall into these 5 general categories. This is the key point right here. Number 1 is the narrative. You guys already understand what that is, but it's the story. Number 2 is mise en scène. Number 2 is mise en scène, which is a French term that means everything in the scene. Props, sets, lighting, actors, performance, all that good stuff. Number 3, cinematograph. Number 3 is cinematography, and that's all the choices that are made with the camera. Look at this. Come here for a second. This camera movement right here, that's part of the cinematography choice. Okay, thank you. Step back. Number 4 is sound. Everything that you hear in a movie, whether it's the musical score, dialogue, sound effects, all that good stuff, falls into this category. And number 5, last and most important of all, is editing, which refers to the relationship between 2 shots. This basically is the core of what you learn in film school right here. Every movie is made up of choices that fall into these 5 categories. Okay, now that you understand pretty much everything I learned in film school, it's time to dive a little bit deeper into editing. I gotta sit down, I'm getting kind of tired. Editing is the aspect of filmmaking that film theorists love to discuss the most because it's what separates filmmaking from other art forms. It's what makes it special. Editing leaves you, the filmmaker, with a vast number of choices to make. For the film The Social Network, they shot 286 hours of footage, and the movie's only 2 hours long. That's a lot of decisions that get made in the editing room and a lot of footage that gets left on the floor. The relationship between 2 shots can be measured in 4 different ways: graphic, rhythmic, spatial, and temporal. What do all 4 of these things mean? Let's go back to the whiteboard. Graphic refers to the pictorial relationship between 2 images, whether it's how colors work together or how the shapes of the frame. 2 shots with similar pictorial qualities are considered a graphic match cut, and 2 shots with contrasting pictorial qualities are a clashing graphic cut. Both of those work for different reasons. We'll get into that. Number 2, rhythmic. Rhythmic editing refers to patterning of shot lengths. So by making shots more or less the same length, the filmmaker can make a steady beat. Gradually lengthening shots can slow the rhythm of a movie, and gradually shortening shots will accelerate it. All these choices have unique impact on the viewer. Think about an action movie, for example, how fast-paced the cuts are and how they get faster as the movie goes on. It creates tension. That's rhythmic editing. Number 3, spatial editing. This one's pretty fun. So this is how filmmakers use editing to help shape the viewer's understanding of a space. There are a lot of Hollywood movies that are shot in Hollywood, obviously, but they'll use exteriors of buildings in New York or Paris or whatever. And the audience will think that these films were actually shot on location because they use those real authentic exteriors and then cut in to interiors. It gives the audience the understanding that there's a spatial relationship between those two shots, even if they're not really connected. It's a nice editing trick. Okay, number 4.
You have the Kuleshov effect.
Oh my God, the Kuleshov effect was invented by this guy, Lev Kuleshov, a Russian film student. And here, I'll show you like an image, a picture, we'll pull that up. But what he proved was that the relationship between two shots can create a meaning that doesn't exist in each one of the shots individually. But that's the Kuleshov effect. It shows that the audience will create in their mind an understanding of the relationship between two shots that doesn't actually exist. So it's a really kind of unique technique that you can use as an editor. That's pretty spicy. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, number 4, temporal. Temporal editing shapes the audience's understanding of how time works in a movie. So most Hollywood movies, for example, are about an hour and a half to 2 hours long. But the stories can be anywhere from weeks to months to years. Obviously, the way that a filmmaker is able to make time go much faster than it does in real life is through something called temporal editing. Obviously, you can skip a lot of time or elide time. This is the most common use of temporal editing. If I have a shot of myself walking into a coffee shop, I can cut immediately to me actually picking up my coffee, and the audience is going to understand that those two things are connected. They're going to forgive me for skipping the amount of time it would take for me to walk from the door into getting coffee and order and all that stuff. You can also slow down time with editing. I'm sure you've probably seen The Matrix. Remember that scene where he does the... That's actually an example of using editing to slow down time. As the camera's moving around, what's his name?
Neo.
As the camera's moving around Neo, it's actually lots of different cameras that are cut together, and they're slowing down time to create that special effects shot. If you want to learn more about that shot, it's called bullet time. I highly recommend looking up that. That's pretty much the basics of everything that I learned in film school in, how long did it take, 5 minutes? Not bad. As you watch videos in your life, try and think about how filmmakers are using all these techniques, especially editing techniques. So there's this challenge that's going viral on TikTok right now that is a pretty good example. Maybe you've seen it. It's called the Wipe It Down challenge. As you watch these videos, think about how the filmmakers are using a graphic match to seamlessly cut between two different shots. It feels like magic, doesn't it? That's because it is the magic of editing.